I was the only one who remembered my grandma's birthday. Now she's left everything to me, and my family is furious. There was a time when I thought family meant something, that blood carried weight, that the bonds we shared were unshakable, that no matter how fractured we became, some invisible thread would always pull us back together. I don't believe that anymore. Not after what happened with Grandma. Not after I watched my so-called family abandon her. Forget about her. Treat her like an afterthought while she sat in that quiet, too-large house, waiting for a call that never came. And now, here they were, sitting in a dimly lit office, shifting impatiently in their chairs, waiting for the lawyer to tell them how much they were about to inherit from the woman they had ignored for years. I clenched my fists in my lap, my nails digging into my palms, forcing myself to stay calm. I shouldn't have been surprised by their hypocrisy. I had seen it for years, how they paraded around during holidays, pretending to be a close-knit family for the sake of appearances, only to disappear the moment there was no audience. How they let Grandma's birthday pass year after year without so much as a phone call, too caught up in their own lives to spare a thought for the woman who had given them everything. Except me. I was always there. The one who showed up? The one who called just to check in. The one who sat with her on lonely afternoons and listened to her stories. The ones that no one else bothered to hear. I remembered every birthday, every special moment, every tiny detail about her that no one else cared to learn. I knew the name of her childhood best friend, the song she danced to at her wedding, the way she liked her tea, 3 sugars, a splash of cream, never stirred. And now, she was gone. Dead at 86, peacefully in her sleep, leaving behind the house that had once been filled with warmth, but had grown quieter with each passing year. And her will, a will that was about to turn this room into a battlefield. The lawyer, a stiff-looking man in a charcoal suit, cleared his throat and adjusted his glasses as he shuffled through the pages. The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. My mother sat to my left, arms crossed, her expression tight with barely restrained impatience. My aunt, Lisa, drummed her manicured nails against the armrest, a faint smirk on her lips as if she already knew how this was going to play out. My cousins, Aaron and Jessica, were whispering to each other, probably making plans for how they were going to spend their cut of Grandma's estate. None of them looked sad. None of them looked like they had lost anything. I swallowed hard, forcing down the bitterness rising in my throat. The lawyer finally spoke. As you all know, Margaret Reynolds left behind a substantial estate, including her home, personal assets, and financial holdings. She was very clear in her final wishes, and I will now proceed with reading her will. The room fell into absolute silence. I held my breath. Margaret Reynolds has chosen to leave her entire estate, house, savings, possessions, and all assets, to her grandson, Daniel Reynolds. The words echoed in my head, but I barely had time to process them before the room erupted. "What?" My mother shot out of her chair, her face twisted in outrage. "That has to be a mistake." Aunt Lisa let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "No way. No freaking way. That house alone is worth millions." Jessica's eyes were wide with disbelief. "Grandma wouldn't do that. She wouldn't just cut us out like that." But she had. I sat there, stunned, my heart hammering in my chest as I gripped the arms of my chair. I had known Grandma loved me. I had known I was the only one who had ever truly been there for her. But I hadn't expected this. I hadn't expected everything. Aaron turned to me, his face red with barely concealed fury. "What the hell did you do?" I blinked. "What?" "You manipulated her," he spat. "You must have... What, convinced her to rewrite her will when she was sick? Took advantage of her when she wasn't thinking clearly?" I scoffed. "Are you serious? You think I had to manipulate her? Maybe she left everything to me because I was the only one who actually gave a damn about her." Aunt Lisa's nostrils flared. "Bullshit. She wasn't thinking straight in the end. This isn't fair." I turned to the lawyer, my voice shaking slightly. "Was there any doubt about her mental capacity when she made these decisions?" The lawyer shook his head. "None. Mrs. Reynolds had multiple witnesses present, and the documents were finalized months before her passing. She was of sound mind, and her wishes are very clear." Silence. My mother sat back down, her hands shaking as she pinched the bridge of her nose. "I can't believe this. After everything she did for you kids, after everything she gave to this family, she just cuts us out? I clenched my jaw. You cut her out first. Mom's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. Excuse me? I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my voice steady, but the anger was there, bubbling beneath the surface. You forgot about her. All of you did. When was the last time any of you called her? When was the last time you visited? Do you even remember when her birthday was? No one spoke. I looked around the room at their guilty expressions, their tense shoulders, their refusal to meet my gaze. Yeah, I said softly. That's what I thought. Jessica crossed her arms, her lips curling in disgust. So what? Just because you played the role of the golden grandchild, you think you deserve everything? No, I said firmly. I don't think I deserve it. She did. Aaron let out a bitter laugh. You really think we're just going to accept this? I shrugged. Doesn't matter. It's legal. It's final. My mother inhaled sharply, regaining some of her composure. Daniel, honey, be reasonable. No one is saying you don't deserve something, but this is too much. She didn't mean for you to keep everything. She just wanted to make sure you were taken care of. Aunt Lisa nodded quickly, latching on to the argument. That's right. She never would have wanted the rest of us to be completely left out. She must have assumed you'd share. I let out a humorless chuckle. Oh, now you want to talk about what Grandma wanted? Funny, you weren't too concerned about that when you were ignoring her for years. Mom's eyes narrowed. You don't need all of it. Neither did you, I shot back. Aaron scoffed. So what? You're just gonna hoard it all? Keep everything for yourself out of spite? Spite. They really thought this was about spite. I stared at them, at their expectant faces, at the sheer entitlement radiating off of them. They thought they could guilt me, pressure me, make me feel like the selfish one. But they were the ones who had abandoned her. They were the ones who had forgotten about her until there was something to take. I had spent years being the only one who cared, and for once, I wasn't going to let them take something from me. I leaned back in my chair, meeting each of their gazes head on. I don't owe you anything. The fury in their eyes was instant, electric, crackling in the air like a storm about to break, and I wasn't afraid to let it hit. The room was thick with silence, the kind that weighed heavy and suffocating, pressing against my chest like an iron grip. I could feel their eyes on me, burning, seething, waiting for me to crack under the pressure. My mother sat rigid, her face unreadable, but I could see the tension in the way her hands curled into fists in her lap. Aunt Lisa had gone pale, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. Jessica looked ready to claw my eyes out. Aaron was the first to break. This is bullshit, he spat, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor as he shot up. You think you can just take everything? Just like that? I exhaled sharply through my nose, forcing myself to stay calm. I didn't take anything. Grandma gave it to me. There's a difference. Jessica scoffed, arms crossed so tightly over her chest it looked painful. Oh, please. You really think you deserve all of this? You, of all people? I clenched my jaw, leveling her with a steady glare. And who does? You? Aaron? Mom? The people who couldn't even be bothered to send Grandma a birthday card, let alone visit her. Mom finally spoke, her voice quieter but no less sharp. That's not fair, Daniel. I let out a humorless laugh. No? You all ignored her for years. Do you even know when her last birthday was? Dead silence. They knew. They knew they had nothing to stand on. But that didn't stop them from trying. Aunt Lisa exhaled sharply, flipping her hair over her shoulder like this was some kind of inconvenience rather than the legal reading of our grandmother's will. Look, kid, she said, her voice sickeningly condescending. We're not saying you don't deserve something. Grandma loved you. We all know that. I scoffed. Do you? Lisa ignored me, continuing like I hadn't spoken. But you have to understand how this looks. Do you really think Grandma wanted to leave nothing for the rest of her family? Doesn't that seem a little unusual to you? I narrowed my eyes. Unusual? Aaron folded his arms, stepping closer. Yeah, suspicious. My stomach twisted. There it was. The moment I had been waiting for. The accusation. They weren't just angry. They were about to turn this into something worse. I sat up straighter, staring at Aaron. You're not actually suggesting what I think you are. He didn't back down. You had access to her. You were the one spending time with her. How do we know you didn't? Stop, I cut him off, my voice dangerously low. Jessica smirked. We're just saying. People do crazy things for money. I felt a slow, simmering anger crawl up my spine. My hands curled into fists. You really think I manipulated Grandma into changing her will? Aaron shrugged. You were the only one around. And let's be real. You always had a thing for acting like the perfect grandson. Seems a little too convenient that you ended up with everything. I inhaled sharply through my nose, fighting to keep my voice steady. She left it to me because I was the only one who cared. Because while you were all busy with your own lives, I was the one making sure she wasn't alone. While you were off doing whatever the hell you do, I was the one making sure she had someone to talk to remember her. Lisa rolled her eyes. And you think that makes you better than us? I let out a cold laugh. No, I think it makes me the only one who deserves this. Jessica let out a disbelieving scoff. Oh, come on, you don't need all of it. This is family we're talking about. I tilted my head, studying her. Funny how you only call it family when there's money involved. Lisa's face darkened. That's not fair. I leaned forward. Fair? Fair would have been Grandma getting to spend her last years with a family that actually gave a damn about her. But she didn't, did she? Because you were too busy. You all were. Mom's voice was quiet, but sharp. We have lives, Daniel. I turned to her, my chest tightening. So did I. But I still made time for her. A long silence stretched between us. Mom's lips pressed together, her gaze flickering with something almost unreadable. Then Aaron laughed, short, bitter. All right, fine. If that's how you want to play it, let's see what a judge thinks. I stilled. Lisa's expression shifted into something smug. Contesting the will is an option. Jessica nodded, a cruel smile curling on her lips. Exactly. And let's be real. No judge is going to believe Grandma actually meant to cut her entire family out. My stomach twisted. You're kidding. Aaron smirked. Nope. I clenched my fists. I had expected anger. I had expected them to guilt me, pressure me, even demand that I share out of some warped sense of family duty. But this was war. Lisa leaned forward, tapping a perfectly manicured nail against the table. Look, Daniel, we don't have to take this to court. It doesn't have to get messy. But if you're reasonable, I scoffed. Reasonable? You mean give you what you want? Lisa's smile was razor sharp. Call it whatever you want. Jessica shrugged. You can either split this the easy way or we drag this through the courts. And trust me, we will. Aaron grinned. Your move. I stared at them, at their entitled, smug faces, at the sheer audacity of people who had neglected Grandma for years and now had the gall to act like they were owed something. And slowly, so slowly, a smirk curled at the corner of my lips. All right, I said. Lisa blinked. What? I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. You want to take this to court? Fine. Let's go to court. Jessica frowned. Wait, I raised a brow. Because I guarantee you, the last thing you want is a public record of just how little you all cared about Grandma. You really want to explain to a judge why you couldn't even be bothered to remember her birthday? Why the only people who ever visited were me and her caretaker? You want to drag this out? Fine, let's drag it out. Aaron's smirk faltered. Lisa's fingers twitched. Jessica opened her mouth, then closed it again. I tilted my head. What's wrong? I thought you wanted to contest it. A long silence stretched between us. Lisa's jaw clenched. You're bluffing. I smirked. Try me. Silence. And then, one by one, I watched them realize they had already lost. Because they didn't care about Grandma. They only cared about money. And the last thing they wanted was to expose just how little they had done for her. Lisa let out a sharp breath, standing abruptly. This isn't over. I grinned. Oh, I think it is. She glared at me for a long moment, before spinning on her heel and storming out. Jessica followed with a huff, Aaron right behind her. Mom was the last to stand. She didn't look at me, just sighed, grabbed her purse and walked out without another word. And just like that, they were gone. I exhaled. my body suddenly heavy with exhaustion. The storm had passed, but something told me it wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. I sat in the lawyer's office long after my family stormed out, staring at the polished wooden desk, listening to the distant hum of the city outside. The storm had passed, but the weight of it still pressed against my chest, thick and suffocating. They had threatened, they had manipulated, they had tried to break me down, but in the end, they had walked away with nothing. And yet, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. The lawyer cleared his throat, drawing my attention back to the present. "Are you all right, Mr. Reynolds?" I blinked. Yeah, I'm fine." He studied me for a moment, then nodded, gathering up the paperwork into a neat stack. "If they do attempt to contest the will, you'll be notified. But given the clear documentation of your grandmother's intentions, they don't have much of a case." I exhaled. "They won't. They were bluffing." "They usually are," he said with a wry smile. I forced a weak chuckle, but my mind was already elsewhere. On Grandma. On everything she had left behind. On the house that was now mine. It took me a week before I could bring myself to step inside her house again. The key felt foreign in my hand as I stood in front of the door, staring at the familiar faded blue paint, chipped at the edges from years of neglect. The house had always been too big for just one person, but Grandma had refused to leave, insisting that this was home. I turned the key, pushing the door open, greeted by the scent of old books, lavender, and something unmistakably her. The silence was suffocating. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me, my footsteps echoing against the hardwood floor. Everything was just as she had left it. The floral couch with the crocheted blanket draped over the back, the antique clock ticking softly in the corner, the framed family photos on the mantel covered in a fine layer of dust. I swallowed the lump in my throat, running a finger over one of the pictures. It was an old one, Grandma holding me as a toddler, her smile warm and full of life. She had always been my safe place, the one person in the world who saw me, who loved me unconditionally, without expectation, without judgment. And now she was gone. I sat down on the couch, the old cushions sinking under my weight, and let out a shaky breath. The reading of the will. I allowed myself to grieve. Not just for her, but for everything. For the family I had lost a long time ago. For the love I had given and never received in return. For the years I had spent hoping they would change, only to realize they never would. The call started 3 days later. First, a message from Jessica. "Look, Daniel, I know things got heated, but we're family. We shouldn't let this money come between us. Let's talk." Then, one from Lisa. "I hope you're happy, Daniel. I really do. Because you just destroyed this family. I hope it was worth it." Aaron didn't leave a message, but he texted, "You're a selfish piece of shit." Mom was the last to reach out. Her voice was tired, resigned. "Daniel, I don't want to fight anymore. Can we just talk? Please." I stared at my phone, my chest tightening. A part of me wanted to answer, wanted to believe that maybe this was the moment they realized what they had done, that maybe, just maybe, this would be the beginning of something new. But I knew better. This wasn't about family. It never had been. They weren't reaching out because they cared. They were reaching out because they had lost. And I wasn't going to let them use me anymore. I deleted every message, blocked every number, and I felt free. A month passed, then 2. The calls stopped. The messages stopped. They had given up. I spent my days cleaning out the house, sorting through old boxes, deciding what to keep and what to donate. I found letters Grandma had written but never sent, birthday cards addressed to family members who had never bothered to read them. She had loved them, even when they didn't deserve it. And for a long time, so had I. But love without effort meant nothing. One evening, as I sat on the back porch sipping tea the way she had taught me, 3 sugars, a splash of cream, never stirred, I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't waiting for them to come back, to apologize, to be something they never had been. I had spent too much of my life trying to hold on to people who had let go of me a long time ago. Now it was my turn to let go. I looked out at the setting sun, the sky painted in hues of gold and violet, and smiled. Grandma had given me everything. Not just the house, or the money, or the possessions. She had given me love, memories, and freedom.